We are live.
Hello, and welcome to the first TinkerTableTalk for Call of Cthulhu, The Shield Against Midnight. I got those in the wrong order. It works, though. But welcome to TinkerTableTalk. The Shield Against Midnight is a 7th edition Call of Cthulhu game set in 1969, originally following a group of CIA agents going undercover in Germany to investigate a listening post that had gone dark. Along their way, they discovered strange otherworldly horrors that have set them on a path that carried them through Vietnam, and now finally back to the United States, while along the way they've picked up some, well, they're not CIA agents, and they're definitely not heroes. But tonight, we're not having game. We're going to talk about why I'm a terrible GM and all of my players hate me and why they're leaving this never to speak to me again.
Oh, shut up.
I would like to begin with Exhibit A. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
I love you.
All right. So, the way we're going to be doing this, I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you, and I will be opening it up to, of course, discussion amongst everybody. But we're also going to have time if you have questions you want to ask me. It's going to be a pretty laid back. We're having to talk about the game. We're having to talk about the system. And I'm going to go ahead and start things off with the one question I want to know most, and I want to hear your thoughts on the most before I get too deep into my rum and coke and can't think coherently. What do you feel with the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu system is lacking the most?
With the system itself?
The system itself, when we're talking specifically 7th edition Call of Cthulhu. What would you change? What do you feel it's missing or doesn't work?
I think I've criticized this before on stream, but I think one of my biggest criticisms with this system, which is a system I generally enjoy, is not a lack of something, but a too much of something. I feel it's got like a really, really big skill bloat problem.
Yeah, absolutely, because it can make the skill system when you're going through character creation an absolute hassle. Because you're trying to find things that work well, you're trying to find things that make your character good, and it always leads to a situation. And I think we've talked about this every time we've rolled a new character. I've talked about it with each of you, where you want to invest in your character concept, but then there's skills that you would normally use a lot, like jump, throw, climb, stuff that's pretty common and you'd like to get up a fair ways, but you just don't have the points because you've got so many other skills you want to invest in.
Yeah, that is a holdover from the fact that Call of Cthulhu is a very, very old system. I mean, going back to the 1982, if I remember correctly, back when those kind of skill-based role-playing games were novel. Riffs, a lot of the Palladium and early Steve Jackson games had pretty similar kind of systems. And Call of Cthulhu is no different in that sense. It is a major kind of hurdle. Because it certainly doesn't simplify things by stretching out what limited amount of points you have into things that generally should or could be assumed based on a singular stat. The climb, jump, swim, etc. things being good examples of that. But yeah, just giving some background to that is it's kind of a holdover. They've improved a lot in 7th edition. And certainly it's a lot better now that we don't have the opposition chart for determining success percentages. Which is an absolute nightmare if anyone's looked into it. That needed to die, and thank goodness It did. But yes, that is definitely one of the failing points of Call of Cthulhu as far as being rules light, in that there are just so many skills. And in fact, there's so many skills that there are skills that change depending on the time frame that you're setting it.
Yep.
Yeah. And like don't get me wrong here. I'm like obviously I'm a pretty big fan of rules lighter, very story driven, let's all get together and make shit up systems. But I do appreciate like good crunchy systems as well. And I do understand that Call of Cthulhu having so many skills is to create characters that are not good at everything, that there is some ways that you can fail, and the fact that, you know, you may not have the appropriate training for this is something that's going to cause tension. But as Jay says, there's a few of these that just in your logic brain, it's like, that seems like it should all be on in one or two skills. And once again, could still create tension because it might not be something you invest in, or it may be something you decide that's not what my character concept is all about. But when you have just like a couple of straight up, like, got to put 5 points here, 5 points here, 5 points here, just because this is like the bare minimum tax of I'm not going to die tripping down a hole.
Yeah.
To piggyback off that, if you'll let me, I think I speak for most Call of Cthulhu GMs and players when I say fuck credit rating as a skill.
Yeah.
It doesn't add anything except take away skill points that could be used to better diversify the character.
Especially when it has a minimum rating that you always have to meet on a character. That's just a tax you have to pay.
And no
Yeah,
minimum
shouldn't that
value.
be like included?
Yeah,
Like if you say like pilots have a minimum of like 20, then okay, you automatically get 20. That doesn't get taken out of some other pool of points.
I agree completely. Because it's one of those skills that has no minimum value, whereas, you know, even firearms have a minimum value that you don't have to put points into to get that value. But credit rating starts at 0? Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're using education and interest skill points to boost it? That doesn't make any sense, really. I mean, in a grand logical scheme, sure, I see it. But what it really does is it bogs things down, honestly. It should just be tied to profession. I realize they're trying to take, especially in 7th edition, they're trying to kind of pull that slightly away where you're not as super bound by professions, to make it a little more... In other words, they realize there's more than just those fixed stereotypes of characters, and they want people to work on that. But at the same time, no, just fuck credit rating. Just right off. Find some other way to do that. I'm not sure how. I'm not gonna try to give advice to these, because really they did a fantastic job in modernizing 7th edition. I really do think it's a pretty crunchy but very familiar system. But yeah, that's a sticking point, and the skills are a sticking point, and they even address that a little bit in talking about how similar skills should get related skill bonuses, but it doesn't fix it, you know?
No.
It doesn't really simplify it so much as it's just one other rule that you're probably going to forget.
And to be perfectly honest, there are quite a few skills that we've been in the specific situation where it would have been appropriate for you guys to roll it, and I forgot they existed and had you roll something a little more sensible. A specific example that comes to the top of my head is when Sage was sneaking along the balcony in Vietnam, and as she was jumping from the balcony and making her sneak checks, I was having her roll dexterity for the jumping and the climbing, because that was the sensible thing for me in my head. It was only after game later when I was looking through things and kind of doing my planning for next week that I realized, oh no, I should have been making her use the climb and jump. But at the same time, that wouldn't have added anything to that situation. In fact, it would have just made it categorically worse, because naturally she doesn't have the most into climb and jump. So she would have probably failed a lot of those checks, and it would have doomed her character to failure, whereas her succeeding was much more interesting. So, no, I completely agree. One of the things I've thought about doing for Call of Cthulhu is actually just cutting some of these skills. A lot of the ones that are based on your physical dexterity, not something you necessarily train for, like again, jump, swim, climb, spot hidden and listen need to stay because they're actually very important to the game. But credit rating needs to stay, but there's something needs to be done with that. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
But I think as we move forward, maybe between season 3 and 4, we might be looking at some of these skills are just going to cease to exist. You will get a refund on the skill points you put into them, if any. But I'm going to probably crunch some numbers and just make the conscious call that if you're swimming in a river, it's either going to be dexterity or strength, depending on the conditions. If you're swimming upriver against the rapids, it's probably going to be strength to mark how well you can swim. Maybe even constitution to see how long you can swim. Or if you're trying to swim really fast, dexterity. I think that would be a much more preferable option. What do you guys think?
Yep, I'm down for it.
I agree.
So I think maybe me and Dan may be having the same thought.
Go ahead.
You understand this is coming from someone who's currently working on the third revision set of rules that were cut down from another set of rules that were then stripped and rebuilt into a non-intentional form, and I'm trying to make it work. Be careful. Call of Cthulhu is not perfect, but it does work. And the numbers and the ratios are put there. They work. Do you have to always call on those skills? Could you skip a lot of them? Sure. But is it a necessary change to improve flow? Dan, I'm sure you have something to add to that, but I'm mostly just saying is, while it is, I know it's tempting, and God knows we named the darn channel TinkerTableTalk, and we do so. And I fully encourage that. Just be careful, especially on crunchier systems like this. When you start removing numbers, the balance and the kind of logic that connects a lot of those skills typically falls away. And it's not something that's going to happen when you move every skill, but, you know, it can. It can happen very quickly. I'm kind of hypocritically telling you this because, you know, Adderjaeger is built and torn down in my brain at least once a week. But with something like 7th edition, don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily always going to be ideal, but it's like Pathfinder. You go too deep into homebrew on really crunchy systems, and it loses a lot of its robustness and ability to handle those kind of varying situations later. I'll let Dan input here, because I know he probably has something to say on that.
There's also the fact that, like, the Call of Cthulhu characteristics, like the key stats and the investigator skills, tend to work at pretty different scales. And, like, that just comes to, like, you can have some pretty big swings in character power by taking out a chunk of those skills. Like, as you said, like, essentially taking out a whole bunch of athletics-related skills and then putting it into, say, dexterity. Because, for example, if we took out the athletics-related skills, which is something I cut down in my character concept because it wasn't as much as it, like, that wasn't how I kind of imagined Parvana. If you cut those out and made it dexterity, just based on dice rolls, suddenly Parvana goes from, yeah, she can probably get around, but it's not her core competency, to she is only 6 points better at being a doctor than she is at being athletic.
See, but I wasn't talking about cutting these points out and putting them into your derived stats, into your strength or dexterity.
No,
These
no,
would
no,
be-
no. I am saying that if you just cut them out and changed absolutely nothing,
Oh, okay.
I would go from rolling, 25s and 30s on those to rolling 70s.
Yeah.
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 I'd go from rolling a 20 on jump with Emilio to a 65.
Like there's power swings there.
Also, if
And
sorry, good.
I think, and then once again, this is me because God knows I've done the same thing and chopped and screwed the hell out of the systems I've played. But I think you get more out of discretion than you get out of just cutting them out altogether. Like, if the decision is between interesting advantage and interesting complication, like if that's what the skill is deciding, then by all means you should be using these investigator skills. If it's a check to decide progress versus floundering for 30 minutes, then maybe give the stronger attribute roll or just assume success.
I can see where you're going with that, but I feel like there are systems in place. Again, assuming I remove some of these rolls, that's the only change I would have made. Assuming I remove those rolls, I feel like there are systems in place to deal with that power curve, notably degrees of success. So again, going back to the example of swimming up a river, I'm looking at Parvana's sheet right now. Say she is swimming in such a way that it would require a check. By default, where she is at right now, it would be a 20% chance of success, no matter what, 20%. That's not very high. That's actually pretty weighted against you. And that's if we're just talking very basic challenge. You just have to roll a normal success. Whereas if we shift it away and say she's trying to swim quickly up the river, so it's specifically a dex check. If it's something simple, something basic, she would have a 70% chance. That strikes me as fair when we're talking simple and basic, but still requires a check. Now, if I want to take that and bring that down and say it's something challenging, you're swimming up a river that's got sharp rocks in it, you're swimming up a river and the current's really strong, I can then declare it's going to be a hard challenge and immediately bring you down to a 35% check. That's the way I could control and prevent that power swing, by having sort of the situation dictate it to make me call for hard or extreme successes. I do see where you're saying, where don't change the rule, and if I want you guys to succeed, I'll do the dex check instead. And if I want it to be more challenging, call for that specific skill. But
I don't even think it's a necessity of challenge, or it's a necessity of what you want the end result to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as I said, these skills, and the reason there's so many skills and the reason why they're so granular, beyond being like, this is the type of systemic, like the kind of base it inherited from the 80s, like Jay was saying.
Yeah.
Is that by having all these skills and by having it so spread out, it, creates tension. It creates very human characters who can miraculously succeed at something they're bad at, or as we've seen many times, fail at something they're very good at. But like it's not like saying it's like, oh, I want you guys to succeed, do a dex check, or oh, I'm trying to make this hard, use a jump. It's more, if it's pushing for advantage or pushing, like, essentially the result will either be the party gets something out of this and gets like a leg up beyond just progression,
Mm-hmm.
versus maybe failure has a cost or failure has a interesting story related complication.
Mm-hmm.
I think that binary is a good place to like bring in all these skills, because that's how this game tells its story.
And I do understand that. I just don't like it where when we're looking at the specific skills, if we're talking simple tasks, it's already weighted against you. I understand that the system wants to build tension and it wants to reward you. But when you look at, again, I'm going to look at your jump skill here, and you've only got a 25% chance of a very basic jump that has no complications, that bothers me. As the GM, that bothers me. Because yes, I can turn that around and you still get to progress. You don't fail so much, but you progress either with complications or I try to create an interesting story shift with that. But at the same time, that just doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair to you guys.
I like going back to the Sage example, like this just comes down to look at it's like yes, if you made her use jump and climb, going outside like that probably would have been way more risky and probably would end up in failure or character injury, when like the interesting thing plus the thing to Sage's skill set was inside. I think at that point it's fair to say it's like, yeah, that's a jump she probably could easily do and she's not under duress. Just let her do it.
Two things to add on to that. The first one is quite plainly, removing those skills, you then have an influx of skill points that could potentially unbalance the character in other ways.
That's the one thing I was, before we even started talking, I was concerned about. I've been kind of going through here, and I think that really would be only an issue for you specifically because you've got a bunch of points in throw. Everyone else seems to have maybe 5 points in one of these skills and then nothing in all the others.
Well, I mean, other things like that too. Credit rating, for example. If we eradicated credit rating, just as an example, that's 30 more points I could put somewhere. 30 points is a lot.
I think we're talking that. I think we're talking that credit rating stays even. With
I know. I'm just using it as an example. Let's take throw for example. That's 40 points.
Mm-hmm. That's the one that was a sticking point for me.
And I'm sure some of us have other points that might have been. Because we're just taking the hypothetical. The other thing I want to bring up is remember that a failure on a first roll does not necessarily mean failure completely. It means a knowledge of the risk of failure. So a low 20% chance, even if you fail it the first time, you don't immediately suffer consequences like you used to, because, boy howdy, you used to.
Yeah.
In 7th edition, you have the ability to push that roll, and that's in the knowledge that there is a risk to it, and that does not only provide tension, but you still have RNG kind of with you. That's still something that, we've had people that have rolled ones on skills that they have no points invested on, a 1% skill. Archaeology, anthropology come to mind. Those are two that happened in the campaign that I ran. Those sort of third eye opens and suddenly I understand, because we do have RNG involved. So you're right, the base chance is relatively low, but you've not only got the ability to know maybe you can't do that. If it's a situation where they're forced, for example, like all of a sudden they've pushed it and now they're in a dangerous situation, well, this is Call of Cthulhu. It is kind of supposed to be dangerous. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I know, I didn't want to kill characters. It wasn't that no one died in my campaign until the last session.
Elder Hole.
No one died in the Elder Hole. Thank you. But at the same time, that risk should be there. And if a player really wants to, sometimes we're going to have characters that don't, If my physical skills are not great, I realize they're better than my swim or my, jump or what have you. If my physical skills aren't great, I can still fail with a 75 or a 65. I mean, I have a better chance, yes, but the risk still exists. And if you start removing them, does my character really need to have a 78 or 79 in intimidation? We can start pushing characters to the point where we have pretty much guaranteed successes. And I'm going to tell you from experience, that's not a lot of fun either. And you can just fail with those, as Dan can tell you. I mean, you failed some medical rolls as Parvana, and you have, what, a 90 in it?
I have a 76.
Oh, I thought you had higher than that. Okay, well...
No, we put reasonable floors or ceilings in this game.
Yeah, well, I can tell you from having a character that had a 90, that was not a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's supposed to be some distribution. I agree that some of these skills are superfluous, probably aren't necessary, and really you could probably play the whole game just with the base core stats. I know I do. In Adderjaeger, because that's basically what Adderjaeger is. But that doesn't mean that it's fluid or that really Call of Cthulhu needs that change. I just don't think, for the amount of time you're going to have to invest to rebalance, to reset, to move skills around, I don't think you're going to see the kind of improvement you want out of it as far as flow. You're still going to have the same type of, potential failures on anything. The only difference is you're rolling less diversity of things. Maybe not, for example, justifying rolls as often. And justifying rolls is one of those cool things that Call of Cthulhu does. And we always make the joke about using tools, but, that's a significant thing. It makes sense. In a lot of other systems, you can just keep rolling, though your chances decrease.
Yeah. And so, and despite the fact that I'm, the one who brought this up, like, don't get me wrong, I think that you maybe could take, like, swim, jump, and climb and yam them into, like, a catch-all kind of, like, sports skill.
Athletics.
Yeah.
Sports.
But the way, and you could, and then in turn balance that, you can in turn balance that by like looking at it's like, okay, well, you add your strength and your dex together and divide it by 2, and that's your bait. Like, you can do things like that. But to just kind of do it on the fly, not at the start of a game, and like this comes back to what you said about, that doesn't seem fair and things like that. On the other hand, like, if you were to eliminate some skills like that, like, Parvana gets a huge power swing in her favor because I rolled some dice well, not because of the character I designed, and in turn, I don't think that's particularly fair to you or the other players.
I can see where...
And yes, as you said, you can do that. Like, you can do that, adjust for, like, roll difficulties, but there's going to be many times where we're going to be doing something as a collective, and let me tell you, as somebody who's, like, done a 6-person magical guns a-flying campaign, when you're trying to balance something to the most powerful person, sometimes people can get crushed underfoot.
Yeah. And I can understand that. Although, Jay, I specifically, oh god, now I've forgotten what my point was. Y'all threw too much at me. Oh god, there was a specific point you made, and I wanted to address it.
Anyway, I think we probably should move on. Should move on from this one onto something, the rest of the people can talk about.
Yeah!
If you want to just listen to me, Jay, and Locust talk, listen to the tail end of season 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
a good buddy
pretty
cop
much,
film.
pretty much
It was.
the entirety of season 1, if we're being
Hey,
completely
I
honest.
was
and a
in
little
there
bit
every
mean.
now and then.
That's true. You were there.
That is true.
Anyways, though, yeah, this is going to be a long discussion. And also, I'll tell you right now, I'm not changing anything tonight. This is something, if I was going to implement change, it would be after season 3 had completely finished. In other words, we would have weeks and weeks to discuss it and finalize changes as a group. But we don't have weeks tonight, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the next question, which unless somebody else has something, I'm going to go ahead and field the next question. And that's, what would you guys like to see more of or less of? Specifically, what do you feel I need to add more of to the campaign? Do you want more crazy monster encounters? Do you want more sanity dribbling monsters? Or do you want more sitting on the tarmac talking about potatoes? What do you want to see, guys?
Sanity
Kayla doesn't get a vote.
monsters. No.
Oh.
Man,
Okay.
there are enough potatoes. I would love to see more like sanity driven monsters, things that like drive character development. That really kind of get into the horror element of Call of Cthulhu. It's like I'm not just talking about like a monster, like having to face a big spooky something or other, but there could be more unsettling elements that we come across that don't necessarily involve fighting.
Yeah, I
Intangible horror.
like that. Just implications of stuff as opposed to an actual enemy.
Things we can't fight necessarily.
Like the paintings in the hotel room.
Or the fucking dagger thing.
Or to kind of draw on the character development thing, for most of season 2, like Parvana and Anderson didn't really interact that much. They didn't have that much of a through line. But now, because of the outcome of a sanity-driven encounter, they actually have like a plot thread. They are entangled in a way now.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm getting at is y'all want to fail more sanity checks. I can make that happen.
Yeah.
Ah,
I mean,
Yeah.
boo.
no. I'm gonna be counter to that. Not to say that I don't mind failing sanity checks, but remember, the world of Call of Cthulhu is not necessarily stable in and of itself. So it's always possible to show us things that are inhuman outside of the realm of comprehension without a sanity check. I mean, maybe a sanity check following, but beforehand. You can, do the thing out of the corner of the eye, the feeling that something is following us, those kind of, I think, more emotional reaction to monsters than raw, this is a physical threat, you are going to get injured threat of monsters.
Agreed.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's lots that can be done without necessarily failing sanity checks.
Oh, but I like making you guys fail sanity checks.
Well, that's always fun, and the mechanics are set to literally let you do that. But what I'm saying is that there's a lot more. You're very good at chewing the scenery when you've set the scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'd like you as players to maybe chew the scenery more deliberately. If that makes sense.
Yeah, take
In other
my
words,
time
like if
with
you've got a set scene and we can hear you go into it. Okay? We can hear the change in your voice. We can hear the excitement in you when you start talking about it. I know that feeling, and I know. So for me, I hear it immediately. I know this is a preset scene because I know exactly what that feels like. To start getting into that gory, darker kind of a thing. I think we'd like to see that also used more in the world. We'd like more layers, I think.
Okay.
Please someone interrupt if I'm not talking for the group.
No, I agree. I was thinking about the NPC that you had where you told us afterwards that you were literally hiding underneath a table and like pulling your hair.
Yeah,
And
the
the
guy who
voice
got
for the
shot under
character,
the table.
yeah, he was like that NPC was so convincing in and unsettling, and it was great. And I was sad that Anderson wasn't there for it.
Yep.
Okay.
The veterinarian comes to mind with the very distinctive, closing one eye and then the other that you used. Really like those kind of details as setting scene and making NPCs stand out.
Okay.
It's something I know, and the reason it sticks out to me is it's something I'm trying very hard to improve myself. Is to make NPCs seem much less, because NPCs can disappear really quick if you're not careful. I'm sure anyone that's tried to GM knows that it's very easy, and in fact, as sometimes comforting to just be like, well, and then the townsperson says, "Oh, you are the hero," kind of a thing, because it doesn't require describing them or using a funny voice, or it's very easy to get into that comfortable streak of just having someone do what you need them to do for a scene without that NPC itself being interesting.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Okay. I think I've got something coming up that you guys will enjoy, and I don't mind telling you that when it's going to be literally the next session. I was planning on doing it tonight, but there's a lot happening tonight, and also I'm tired. So I think there are some things I already have in mind that are going to be very pleasing to that specific request, and I think that going forward, I will definitely have written that down so you can bet that that's going to be going into my notes. So okay, is there anything else people would like to see more of? Darby, I haven't heard that much from you. Let's get your opinion.
On a really personal note, not so much for the group as a whole, but literally just for my fucking character.
I
Honestly,
mean, you've got 3 characters, so.
well, this applies to all of them. Is the thing, except the dog, he doesn't give a shit.
What I'm saying is you count for 30% of the group.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that I lost my train of thought. God damn it.
Focus, kill my dog.
Stop interrupting, Kayla.
Oh, they really need as this continues to get dragged on and on for them, they need a little bit more twisting their arm into staying, because they have no one on my end has any obligation to stay and be a hero. No one gives a shit. They're all in kind of self-preservation mode, and self-preservation mode right now dictates to get the hell out of this chicken shit operation. And it worked with the idea that there was a gun to the other's head if one of them pulled out. With Hutchinson, that was a dynamic that kept them in. But even though our new ranger dude is way nicer and more cooperative and all that stuff, that's great, but then the reality is why do they need to stay? And I want them to stay because I don't want to necessarily just drop out of the game. But if I'm staying in character, they're gonna just get the fuck out.
Fair enough, but I've actually been trying to work on something
Okay.
that I felt like you didn't pick up on. I know we didn't completely go into it because it was at the ranger station shortly before the monster showed up. So maybe we just didn't go deep into it. But
the whole I have a curse thing, and now I'm under
the idea
their
that
thumb.
Well, it's not so much that you're under their thumb, but are you really going to be safer out there on your own?
Yeah. But I mean,
kind of the idea I've been trying to put into Gwen's head.
And that's fine, but I guess what I'm saying is that that flame hasn't been fanned enough, because if you're giving her the option of oh, do you think you're gonna be safe in society? Versus my dad is telling me that he should have strangled me in his crib. I want nothing to fucking do with this. That has more weight right now than, just being, ooh, the unknown of being cursed in normal society.
I will also say, you do have the option to walk away, and I can find a way to bring you back. If you want to do that, you think it would be in character for your character to walk away. We've already had one PC who did that. And it was fine. The story worked fine. In fact, Chase may come back.
Right,
As foolish as Emilio is, it's a very real possibility he just gets himself straight up ganked.
There's a very real possibility that Chase comes back either, well, we've already got him as a full-fledged NPC, so he may end up as an advisor on one of your adventures, or if Emilio bites it, he may come back full stop. So if you want to walk away with Gwen, the story can go on, and we can either do something, I can talk to you, and we can work something out that brings them back, or we can let them step off stage for a little bit and have somebody else step into the spotlight.
Well, yeah, but the only thing I have against that is that, like, Jay did that and made another character, and that's fine. It worked for him and everything, and Chase isn't, like, gone, and he's just on pause. That's fine, but I don't really have any interest in making a new character. I like using who I have right now. It would be in character for them to just fucking weasel the hell out of this, but I, as a player, don't have any interest in, like, actually sidelining them.
Again, I can help come up with, like, a one-on-one scene that I guarantee you we could pull them back. But I mean, I'm trying to find the motivation to keep your character, but it seems like you're really not. You're not. I don't know. I'll see what I can do.
Oh, okay. Like, so, I know that you had the whole, like, magic curse thing going, and that's fine. It's just, if the threats against them are intensifying, then that would kind of need to intensify too in order to give them a reason to stay, is all I'm saying. But if it gets to the point where that's not even enough, then I'll happily sit down with you and try to figure out some other leverage.
No, and it's fair to say, to go and ask the players and say, or to even say, hey, this is feelings I'm having, here's what I'd like to see more of, but also, like, what would keep Gwen in? Like, what would shift her opinions?
Are you asking me that?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like I said, they don't have any interest in the cause that's being worked for right now by everyone else. They're not actually CIA. So the real big leverage for either of them, really, at the end of the day, is just each other. Like, if Alvar thinks that the safest thing for Gwen is to be in the company of these people and not out in society, he will encourage her to do that. But that doesn't mean that's where her head's going to be at. But you can flip that and have some other vice versa for it. Like, I don't even know right now, but if they are each other's leverage, that's really the bottom line.
But I mean, they've been used as leverage, and that's not working. So what would work?
When did that not work?
You're the one specifically sitting here telling me that that's not working.
No, back when Hutchinson was involved, and there was the actual all but spoken threat of, if you leave, then I can't promise your dad's going to be safe. That worked. That kept her when Chase had completely given her the option to leave. Like, that alone was what kept her there. And with Hutchinson gone, that, like, violent leverage is gone as well. But I don't know. I'm saying that did work.
Okay, then I'm kind of confused because there's still very violent leverage in place. It's just not coming from Delta Green. And oh dear. Oh, we lost Angie?
Mhm.
She's come back.
Oh, okay. Welcome back, Angie. But
That's the
Sorry,
point.
I
Then
was-
Jay looks around. It's like, yeah, she's gone.
not getting harassed no more. But again, the violent leverage is in place, just maybe not the threat coming from Delta Green. And you started this by telling me that they need more leverage to keep them in place. In other words, the leverage that's there isn't working.
It's not that the leverage is there is not going to continue to work, I should say, if things continue to ramp up the way they naturally have been, just because at some point the consequences of not having the whatever help that this company may provide her in dealing with the stuff that she's kind of been afflicted with is not going to outweigh the torture of staying involved in all this shit.
Sounds like
And
you're saying
I'm not-
make the dagger spookier.
What?
What?
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the thing is that the threat of this whole spooky dagger thing, like bothering you, does not outweigh all of the other crap that this crew manages to get themselves into in terms of like Anderson shooting everyone and
Yeah,
So
like
on and so
she'll go
forth.
deal with the threats of the dagger. That's looking more and more appealing every day.
so it sounds
So-
like I'm sorry, go
it's
ahead.
that as its own leverage is not like bad. I'm just saying it probably needs to be more intense as the other stuff is also getting more intense.
So make the dagger spookier. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
I guess
hearing.
that if that's what you're saying, then yes.
Okay. I see the problem here, and I'll fix it.
Okay, sorry if that was really convoluted.
It's fine.
It is
But-
also going in with an opportunity that, like, the big thing here is that another thing to notice of that is Gwen feels mostly connected to her father. Like, she doesn't feel connected to this group in any way. They're just a bunch of assholes she got dragged along with.
Yep.
She probably wouldn't like it if one of them died, but
No, she's not a like cold bitch. Like, you know, if someone dies next to her, that's gonna be very unpleasant. But at the same time, you know, some of them have kind of extended niceness to her, but I mean, the most prominent interactions that she's had with them is stuff like Anderson putting a gun at her father and everything like that. It's the whole thing is just too stressful and not very much reward coming out of it, you know? Which I get is that I'm not complaining about that as a player. That's the point of the game. That's fine. I'm just saying that's Gwen's impression of it.
Lucas, you need to end the world. That's the obvious solution there.
Yeah, clearly.
The reward needed is world not blowing up.
I mean, y'all already pushed it. It's closer to World War III by escalating the conflict in Southeast Asia. What was it? 60,000 troops being committed there? Something like that? Yeah.
Because of some damn photos.
yeah, that's way escalating. Usually World War III doesn't happen till like the 2010s ish.
Nah, we're not waiting for a Cheeto to get elected in chief. We're gonna fucking do this shit right.
I don't know if I'd use the word right to explain this, but okay.
Anyway, I to jump back in is especially with the dagger gets spookier thing. It's the fact that, you know, Parvana is also connected with the dagger. It's ways to tie the characters together as well as the threats.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that would probably help too. Like if, and this is not really something that Locus has control over, and that's fine. And it's also not something I'm entirely sure is even in the realm of possibility. But actually having something close to like friends within the group would also be motivation to stay. I just don't know who all is eligible for that right now.
Yeah, I've kind
Probably
of made my
Parvana more than anyone else.
I have made my best effort at making friends with Gwen. That's on you.
Yeah, this
Wait,
is not
with the ranger dude?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, she's got very little against him right now. It's just the situations of meeting him and everything that immediately happened is just it's just a shit show. That's where the focus went.
So I'm gonna make a statement. It's gonna sound like a really dickish thing to say, and then you have to understand that I'm only speaking about my character, no one else's. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes characters don't work in parties.
Mm-hmm.
That is the pure truth of it, and that's pretty much why Chase left. Chase really tried very hard to open up avenues of discussion between everyone. He specifically brought Sage in when there was discussion about classified files about her family. He specifically tried to get Gwyn pretty much free to go because he can only do so much. He can't remove what leverage they had. The only option he had was to basically let her go home. She could protect her father. Parvana and him kind of got along because they had no one else to turn to, really. They had to talk to each other. Anderson and Chase shared very few words until Anderson lost her damn mind and he sat there and field stripped weapons with her. But in the end of the day, Chase had no real connection with any of you. And it does go both ways with characters. And that's one of the reasons I pulled him out, is because Chase was not the right character to intermesh with the group. Emilio has a much better chance because he's a loser, effectively. He's good in what he does, but he's a normal guy, and he can overlook a lot of the party's flaws. And potentially, I think, has a better chance of interacting because he's not as... his concerns are far different than what the party's concerns are. And I guess that relates him better to some of the characters. He's also more of a support character than a leading character. And we have an entire party of people that do not deal with authority figures well. So, Chase was at the very tip top of not dealing with authority figures well. He was very good at his job, but he didn't like the way Hutchinson handled it. And he eventually said so. And that's one of the reasons when the party really just kind of let Chase go, I said, yeah, it sounds about right. I think Chase is just maybe a little too much of an outsider. So that's why I pulled Chase out. Now, could he come back? Maybe. I mean, if Emilio dies, I really don't have a third character in mind for the setting currently. Because I really don't want to make a pure combat character. I've never felt those work great within Call of Duty. When they work out, they're great. But it's such a rare occurrence when a pure combat situation evolves that it feels like a very flat thing for me. Again, just speaking for me and my experience with Call of Cthulhu. But sometimes characters just don't fit. It's not players. It's sure as hell isn't players. I get along, I think, pretty well with all of you. But Chase handles situations differently than everyone else in the party. And that put him, I guess, less trustworthy? I don't know. I don't know what people's feelings on Chase were, but I could tell that there really wasn't a connection. The only person Chase really had any connection with was Parvana. And again, I think that's because, Dan and I spent at least 4 sessions only being able to talk to each other in Strauss.
Yep.
So that helps, when 2 characters only have each other to talk to, and I think me and Dan can vamp for ever if given the opportunity.
If you want to hear that,
Yes.
listen earlier tonight.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm not saying that Gwen doesn't belong with the party, but there has to be some innate reason that she would want to stay. It's not going to come to you later.
And that's basically all I was getting at. Is like she doesn't have any reason to stay, but there are potential reasons not to leave.
Right, but eventually, when the risk does reach that point, you're going to have a very hard time justifying in-character actions. In other words, I'm saying the character is going to get harder and harder for you to play. And when you came in, I was really concerned. As soon as I heard that basically you're staying because there's leverage on your dad. because I knew eventually that would either dissolve, become lessened, ignored, or fall away. And then, with as combative as Gwen is, and again, not you, because I've been in several games with you, I know it's not you, the way Gwen is, that it would become very hard for you to stay with these roving band of jerks, especially roving band of authority figure jerks that you didn't really deal well with to begin with, you know?
Mhm.
So there, I've said my piece on that, since I'm the only person who's taken a character out of play. That's why.
I think you did said so.
Yeah, it's a fair point. But I guess that's something to think about. Well, I've forgotten my questions. How are you guys doing? What do you feel like? What do you feel like tonight? What's everybody drinking?
Get coffee.
Water.
Why aren't you drinking, Jay? Hydration
Just,
keeps your skin healthy.
I have Coca-Cola.
I've got a butane torch.
You can't.
It's not a
You
drink.
probably can't.
No, Jay, no!
You can drink butane, but I think you can only do that trick once.
No, I've got a big diamond-shaped crayon here that I was making shiny and smooth for my daughter, and that required a small propane torch. I'm not currently drinking anything. Just side projects, you know.
I too work with fire on the side.
Same though, TBH.
Alright, hot stuff.
Wow. Anyways, do you guys have any questions for me? I've been asking you questions all night. What do you guys have to ask me? What are you curious about? What do you want to know?
Why the fuck would you make us believe that is the King in Yellow when you're bringing a gnarly analog into game?
I have no
What?
idea what you're talking about.
I don't even know what you said.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Besides, it's not like there's only one big bad in COC.
No, there's many, but you're playing a false flag between two of them.
False flags on a CIA game.
Yeah, who would have thought? And actually, the King in Yellow has an interesting connection with somebody you've already met.
What the fuck is the... Wait, what did I miss? Who's the King in Yellow? Did I miss a session?
No, I have
That's
no
true.
idea what's going on either.
It's a Cthulhu mythos thing.
That
Oh,
was
I'm sorry.
very
It's a cool kids club.
No, it was mentioned. We haven't gotten the chance to completely elaborate on that yet. But
When
when
was it mentioned?
I was just about to answer that.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, the middle of my sentence interrupted the beginning of yours.
Sorry.
When you were at the Ranger Lodge and Sage got the complete files on what had happened with her parents, she briefly was able to skim them and realized that her parents had been involved with a cult revolving around the King in Yellow. It
She was
was
able to
not
grab those.
elaborated upon in what way just yet, except that there were also children involved. I would have to go back and rewatch that episode or pull open my notes because I don't remember exactly what I told you. But that's kind of why I was sad you weren't here last week, Angie, because when Sage got to her hotel room, I was going to go over those notes with you.
We're still at the hotel.
What?
She said we are still at the hotel.
Yes, you are still at the hotel, so that can be something we go into next week. Because that'll finally give your character the time to dig deep into the notes and get the full detailed story. At least as far as Delta Green is concerned. So, that's more or less the King in Yellow. As far as you in character know, I know some
Okay.
of you out of character know a little bit about the King in Yellow. Jay. But
I'm just bad at remembering when I've heard something like that.
That's why I usually one of the things I do for prep is I skim through the previous episode because I'm bad at keeping notes that remind me everything I told you guys.
Still
So-
think you need a secretary.
Yeah, but then
What
I'd
are
have
you
to give
doing?
my secretary spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aren't you glad we record episodes now?
Yes, I am.
I didn't have that benefit when I did COC. I couldn't go back and rewatch things. It would have.
Yeah, but you're
God.
way better at notes than I am. All
No,
right,
actually, we just had 6-hour sessions at our house.
that's
I
true.
kind of miss those days. At one point, you feel like you accomplished so much, at the other point, it feels like you've accomplished nothing.
Yep.
It's like 6 hours goes by. Damn it, I haven't even finished the goddamn plot. Admittedly, 6 hours now in the new recorded session, we can't even get from Germany to Vietnam, so.
Yeah. I will admit full responsibility for that, though. I should have reined you guys in better and also given you a bit better direction. That was completely my bad. 100%. I should have controlled those scenes a little bit better and gotten you moving along. That will not happen again.
Like we all have our flying from Germany to Vietnam, or our walking the streets of DC, or literally half of Voices in the Wilderness.
I mean, I jokingly say that during our time in doing that there was some great character progression and interaction.
Was
But
there?
there wasn't!
I mean,
Talk
we
about
learned a lot about
sandwiches.
everyone's favorite type of sandwiches. Yeah.
No, you didn't, because your sandwiches were terrible. You didn't succeed that role.
I know I did once.
She did. She did succeed
Yeah.
once. And remember my whole potato thing? I think I got a
But-
1 on that. So you gave me the best potato dish ever.
Christ.
I just remember a lot of people yelling at me in character. That's all I remember about that fight. And there was an elephant, and we stole some heroin, and that was about it.
Yep. And you've been siphoning that heroin to sell off to Lukowski ever since.
Apparently.
Which, to be fair, has worked in your favor so far.
How has that worked in our favor?
Because since you were the one dealing drugs to Lukowski, you noticed the drugs that were not supposed to be there.
I was gonna say, didn't that just make him like late to everything?
He was going to be late anyways. Just because you weren't the one selling to him doesn't mean he wasn't getting high.
Well, okay, but that okay. That's, I was going with, probably shouldn't have gotten him on heroin in the first place.
You're not the ones who got him on heroin in the first place.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, he was already getting coked up before when Parvana came back. And then she just kind of was like, well, if he's going to be doing this anyways, I might as well be the one doing it to him.
We lost Dan. No, that was Dan.
We lost. Yeah. Welcome back.
There's
I
Dan.
think.
Yes. I
Hello.
hear you.
Cool.
I can hear you too.
I did that. I was doing that thing where I was speaking and I was being talked over. It's like, oh no, this isn't going through.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's no problem. I was literally saying the same things that you were saying there.
Yeah.
Which was that, like Locus said, it's like Lukowski has developed a heroin addiction, and then I spent a gold coin to be. It's like, and I'm his dealer.
Yep. And I do actually have a couple of other ways to plan to have that help out.
The only time when a drug addiction is a benefit.
If you spend a gold coin in this game, it's going to end up helping you.
Yeah, like it's Parvana's thought is that if she's going to be stuck with this asshole, she's going to own him.
Yep. I will say this here and now. Gold coins are never going to be detrimental. Sometimes you may still fail a roll if you go for the bonus dice and you roll 300s in a row. But if you spend a gold coin, I am going to find a way to make it benefit you. Even if you're spending a gold coin to kick a puppy.
Wow.
I'll be like, that puppy had a really odd mustache and was thinking about going to an art school in Austria. But now you've just completely ruined his aspirations.
I want to play that game.
Where you kick Hitler puppies.
You guys are awful.
It's mouse guard, but it's MAUS guard.
Oh,
Oh
my
no.
god.
Oh no.
Can we run that mouse guard?
Please don't.
Don't think they'd allow us to upload it anywhere.
No, I don't think you could stream it either.
Oh, that sounds like it'd be a hilarious one shot. Can we just appreciate, though, for a moment, that Dan was literally going to play Hitler in our one shot?
What?
There was a point where I started rolling the character concept of a traveling art student.
Oh, I think that would have been the funniest fucking thing. Hitler, and see, we even got Brendan's support. He'd play mouse guard within MAUS, but that would have been the funniest fucking thing. Hitler gets involved with a cult of and now I've forgotten her name because it's impronounceable. Yogg-Sothoth?
That's not a her, but yeah.
Well, it's the black goat with 1,000.
No, that's not Yogg-Sothoth.
Okay, then I've just got the wrong one. Hang on.
Isn't Yogg-Sothoth the one that like gives babies like lots and lots of babies?
Shub-Niggurath. That's
Shub-Niggurath,
yeah.
Sorry,
I get these mixed up.
Yogg-Sothoth
I know
is
it's
the way and the
2017,
path.
but you still have to whisper that word.
I had the same thought actually.
I'm not sure we
We're
can
all
upload this on
horrible people
YouTube now.
together.
Well,
Sorry.
Welcome to TinkerTableTalk After Dark.
yeah, exactly. Isn't it always after dark?
Yes,
Fucking-
technically. At least
Well,
on
for
the
most
East
of
Coast.
you. I guess me and Kayla are the ones who are
No.
on.
Oh
Yeah,
wait, yeah, the sun is
the
still
west.
out.
Yeah.
The black is closed,
Barely.
so-
Fucking Satanists.
What? How? What?
I think we should move on to the next question before we go too far down this rabbit hole. Or mouse hole, as it were.
Why are West Coast people Satanists?
Anyways, moving on. Yeah, let's go back to questions you guys want to ask me. Jay, you've wasted your question.
Oh.
Moving on.
Ouch!
I'm sorry. Actually, I'll take that back. Jay, you had a very good point, but I actually can't answer that just yet. Maybe at the end of season 4 I can answer that.
I know you can't, but you said, do you have any questions? So I asked.
Yeah. Anyways, does anybody else have any questions? Is there something you feel like I went over, something you're confused about? What would you guys like to know?
When are you gonna finally kill Sage?
After you start getting attached to the character and genuinely want her to live.
Fair.
Sounds right.
When am I getting this hypothetical dog that you're going to kill?
I mean, probably when you find a box of puppies.
And kick them?
Sage will help you raise them.
Just the Austrian ones.
You'll be able to celebrate your first impale roll.
Austrian deaf puppy. You did this to
God,
yourself.
Yeah, I did. The memes will never die.
Oh man, that was good.
I like how I find ways every couple of months to fucking bring that up, and no one expects it for some reason. It makes
Listen,
me happy.
It's because sometimes we're good. Sometimes we spend an entire session in an Italian restaurant and not bring up a pizza oven.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good
I
no!
was waiting for that all night. I will tell you right now,
Oh,
I was
no.
braced for impact on that all fucking night. And you
I
guys got
don't-
through the entire session without it coming up, and I was like, well, okay. I'm not sure if
I'm
I should be really
so
relieved or really disappointed.
fucking
And-
upset now that I never had Gwen ask for a schnitzel pizza.
And now your question is like, Should I be really disappointed or should I be really glad? Oh no, wait, Dan noticed.
Yeah.
I have to ask. I've got another question for you. What
Okay.
the fuck was going through your head with Austrian Death Flower?
Yeah.
I was on the spot, and I don't know my flowers very
Botany.
well. Yeah, I don't know my botany at all. At all. So I was like, all right, let's make up something on the spot that sounds reasonable. I'm going to use tools.
Wrong.
It was 100% the same thought process that went into, I'll try using tools for my push roll. On the spot, want to get the answer out quickly, so it goes through the stupid filter for speed.
I mean, it's just amusing because we have Austrian Death Flower, and then in voices we have Roost Root and Lavocado and Bloodberry Jam and Seed Mellows and yes, Lavocado, which
Yeah.
That's
Keller came up
adorable.
with is fantastic. By the way, Voices in the Wilderness Sundays 5 p.m.
Counterpoint, we also have Jim Wizzardo.
I'm sorry, what?
Like I said, Voices of the Wilderness Sundays at 5.
Yup.
He
Tune in
build
for that
frog
one.
people.
We also disabled a crime boss's boat with instant cake.
That was an
Fudgy the Whale.
event.
Oh god, Fudgy the Whale.
Still haunts us to this day.
By the way, 16 episodes, Voices of the Wilderness on Tinker Tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone interested.
Absolutely. Oh man. No, but if you ever hear me with a stupid word or stupid name, like what was the fishing company in Vietnam? Happy DM or something like that?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Oh, I should have gone with like a Carpe DM. That would have been hilarious. DM Carp Fishing Company. No, it was just I wasn't thinking. I was just trying to get the answer out.
And it comes down to the tough thing about this setting is threading the needle of making sure the tone is right for the age and not be for reals racist.
Yeah. Yes, it is. There have been some things I've shied away from a little bit just to avoid that conflict.
Which is a fair choice. Oh, he's way too old.
Oh no, what?
I was just saying that if somebody's looking for an extra character to play in 1969, Tom Carvel would be 63 years old.
Oh my god. So our next character is going to be a satanic Carvel cake maker.
Choose the form of the destroyer.
Oh
Fudgy the
no.
Whale.
What have you done?
All Tinker Tabletop games exist in the same
Yep.
universe.
Yeah, Outer
Bound
Jaeger is
together by
just,
Fudgy the Whale memes.
Protocol of Cthulhu.
The destroyed world Mome flies above is
Yeah.
Earth after we're done with it.
Yeah. I was just about to say that.
Fudgy the Whale is actually the villain in the Call of Cthulhu campaign. Everything else is just lies.
Formless and full of calories.
All hail the dark god.
The dark chocolate god.
Oh my god.
Cake people look like cake, taste like people.
Alright. Now for my next question. Can you point out all of the movies and books I've stolen my influences from?
John dies at
I
the
live
end.
under a rock, so I don't
Okay,
know
so
any
John
of them.
dies at the end. Yeah, that's one of them.
Congo.
Yep. Yep, there you go.
Tropic Thunder.
No.
Damn,
Oh,
that's
well.
a good one.
Damn.
I mean, not intentionally, but the way you guys acted in Vietnam, a little bit.
Oh wait, I'm mixing that up. Oh goodness, what is the name of that? See, you said Tropic Thunder. I thought of the show that had Hulk Hogan driving that superboat from the early '90s.
I don't know what that is, but I want to see that now.
Is
God
the
damn it, now you're looking up-
Expendables one of them?
I think Chase caused some deer hunter stuff to happen.
Yeah.
See, you told me at some point that like you have like references that you share with each of us that you've worked into this. I don't know, like I know that like John dies at the end was totally the thing you share with Kayla. I don't fucking know if you've done anything yet that has to do with me. And I live under a rock, so I don't fucking know anything.
Have there been Mad Max references?
Not
What?
yet, but after the nukes drop, yeah, there probably will be.
Thunder in Paradise. Yeah, Bryn found it just as I thought. Yep, Hulk Hogan with a superboat in the Florida Keys
Dan.
That's hilarious, and I need to watch that now.
is like early '90s camp. Really horrible early '90s camp, but I used to sit down after school and watch it every day.
Oh my god, I'm watching this. This is the goofiest fucking thing.
Can we just appreciate that Dan has put Fudge Nigger off in the chat?
Yes, we can. Why does he have an eye patch?
Fudgy the Whale or Hulk Hogan?
Hulk Hogan.
Because he needed to look more cool, more rugged.
He's Hulk
Oh.
fucking Hogan.
My god.
I mean, the boat has like missiles too. It doesn't make any sense.
I like how this whole intro is just him in the boat going around, and they just kind of show different angles of the boat.
Yeah,
He's not doing anything in it. It's just he's driving a boat.
That's the show. They fight people like. It's basically the movie Commando without the kid.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So it's that constant like suit up scene over and over
Yeah.
again, but with a boat.
That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, as Brett explains it pretty well, it was kind of like Knight Rider, but with Hulk Hogan and a boat.
So, what other references?
Off the top of my head, I know Starship Troopers was referenced
Yep.
in the speech that Hutchinson gave you. God. What was another one that was in Vietnam? Unfortunately, no, I did not get to do a platoon reference. I actually did have a platoon reference in mind if the attack had gone through as planned on time, in which case the Delta Green extract team would be arriving about the same time that the attack was going on. I totally had a platoon scene ready to go for that. Namely, the famous scene where it's God, what's his name? Oh God, what's the actor's name? I love him. He's in
Vincent
everything.
D'Onofrio?
No, the very famous scene where it's literally on the cover of like the DVD case for Platoon, where he's got his hands up in the air and he falls to his knees as Viet Cong shoot him. God, he was in fuck, now this is gonna bother me.
William Dafoe? Brennan?
Willem Dafoe. That's it. Thank you. Willem Dafoe.
He's still in everything. He's actually arguably in more things now.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, it was the scene where Willem Dafoe is they thought they'd left him behind, and then he comes out of the woods as they're taking off, and everybody witnesses him die. Like, I was planning on doing something like that with one of the Delta Green X agents, and you guys would have had some opportunity to get some of their specific gear off of them. Don't get me wrong, you more or less came out on top with what you did pull out of there.
I'd say so.
And Dan's gonna make the puns. You failed both those rolls.
There's no Willems.
There is no Willem, no friends,
That's
no
basically the question of the original John Wick movie. Willem Dafoe or Willem Dafoe?
foe. Oh God. But no, I did have something planned like that. If you guys didn't quite meet your goals, then again, you did spectacularly in Vietnam. You impressed quite a lot of people in Vietnam. There's a reason you're not stuck with Hutchinson anymore.
Can see kill Hutchinson later?
I got a question.
Yes.
As Parvana gets increasingly disconnected, is there a possibility she could be the final boss?
Oh my gosh.
There's always the possibility she could be the final boss. Then again, she does have some competition right now.
Anderson?
I didn't say from the party.
But to be fair, Anderson has done the most damage to the party.
It's true. Nope. Nobody's done as much damage to a party member as Anderson. Not any of the monsters I've thrown at you guys. Is pushing a Willem Dafoe roll out. Yes, but the consequences for that are absolutely dire.
Yeah, he turns into the Greek Goblin.
Yup. And Spider-Man does the fucking emo dance in the hallway.
What?
You haven't seen Spider-Man 3?
No.
I don't remember. I didn't.
Oh,
I don't
God.
know.
That's when Spider-Man turns emo and dances like a douchebag.
I think we've just erased that film from the public memory.
Yeah, thank God for that.
Like The Incredible 6.
Oh,
Oof.
I will never watch that movie again. No matter how much I have to drink. All right. Does anybody have any other game-related questions? Okay.
Can we eventually go to Yonkers, New York?
I mean, technically, you all could take a drive up there next session if you want.
Yes, we could stop at the Caravel Inn.
No,
It's the corporate headquarters of the Caravel Cake Company.
Oh my god, Dan.
Can we go to Buffalo so like we can get some actual buffalo wings?
This campaign is not about food.
Are we just gonna have like an interim, like one shot? The party goes on a vacation because they're tired of all this crazy shit, and it's just like the Harlem Globetrotters can be there, and someone goes ruh-roh, and
there's a that's the session where Rocket starts talking.
Anderson takes the party to a potato farm, says it's her best day ever.
No one else agrees it's their
Anderson's
best day
family
ever.
farm is a potato farm.
Parvana dies, and I re-roll Guy Fieri. It's like, we're gonna go to the craziest diners, drive-ins, and dives across this fucked up unreality hellscape.
It's just a highway to Flavortown, then.
Yeah, I was gonna say that deep one just went straight to Flavortown.
Gwen might stay for that. I think I found her leverage. She wants to see Guy Fieri.
Yes.
I think this is amusing. We've had two Tinker Table Talks so far, and we had voices, and we had this discussion about characters and motivations and how they've changed and all these kind of things. Then we had Streamlining the Stream, where we spent the entire 2 hours talking about mechanics and improving game flow and how Locus feels weird and all those kind of things. And then now we have this one, and we have just devolved into memes. Just constant memes at this point. Since 10:30, we have been on memes.
Yeah, that's kind of the metaphor for this game.
Fudgy the whale
World
kind
is
of
ending.
started.
Talked about things.
Guy Fieri, Fudgy the Whale. Let's
I
just
mean,
get it all lit up.
when you guys in Germany were in Germany, it was very serious. And then
Yeah,
it
there were two
became
of us.
memes.
Statistically, we had less opportunity to make it memes when there were only two of us.
I mean, we did have the schnitzel delivery meme.
That was the one shot.
No, actually.
Oh, you're right.
That was Chase knocking on the door and saying, Schnitzel delivery. Schnitzel Hut, that's what it was.
Schnitzel Hut.
Yeah, Schnitzel
He
Hut.
knocked on the door and said, Schnitzel Hut, delivery. And it went from there. That's where the schnitzel joke started. Then we had the pizza oven, and it was a pizza schnitzel oven. And it just snowballed from there.
It was so bad.
Dad, what was your schnitzel company? I've forgotten it now. It was Papa John's one.
Oh fuck, I can't remember.
I may have to go back and listen to that one to find out, because that was a really good one.
Yeah.
We are nightmare people.
The real horror is the memes. Alright. On that note, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it for this evening. I don't really have anything else that we really need to talk about. I don't think y'all have anything else that you really need to talk about. Memes don't count.
What about my feelings?
Those aren't real either.
Okay.
What about my puppy?
Do you really want a dog?
If you keep threatening that you're gonna kill my dog, you better give me a dog and you better kill it.
That's
You
a
remember the
horrible thing to
last time
tempt
you
him
called
with.
my bluff?
This is not a bluff.
Alright.
They're just next session
Wow,
we're gonna
that
be
was
like loading into
ominous.
the
I'm
car.
so uncomfortable. Kayla, what the hell?
Next session we're just gonna be loading into the car and you're gonna see some poor puppy sitting out in the middle of the road and Anderson's just gonna be like, oh, it's a puppy, and walk forward, bus out of nowhere, just smears it along the road. Just right in front of her. Roll for sanity.
Just like not even a bus, just is instantly gibbed, and it just repeats from like 4 different angles, and just you can see Anderson's horrified face in each of the shots.
Nah, he's gonna wait until I like take the sauce again, and he's gonna wait until I fail a roll, and then he's gonna be like, "You're transported to a field with a bunch of puppies and someone with a lawnmower."
That's a horrible visual.
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
I mean, it could be worse. It could be a weed whacker.
Agree.
Let's not pretend to make it worse here.
It's Dead Rising 2 Puppy Edition.
Oh my god.
Fucking dead alive shit.
Yeah. I kick ass in the name of the Lord. Oh, that was a
Jurgen?
fantastic movie.
I
Yeah.
kick the Lord in the name of ass.
Rita?
I Lord Ass, the name of the king.
Dan?
Yes. Just Dan.
Is me, the Lord of the Ass.
Oh my god. You missed
Well,
the
I
other
found my
day.
ringtone.
Me and fucking Darby were up late, and fucking I started singing Smash Mouth, but I replaced every like other wording with ass. So I was like, oh fuck, how did it go?
Somebody once told me that ass
was gonna roll me.
roll me. I ate the sharpest ass
in
in
the
the
ass.
I knew we
She
could.
was looking kind of ass with her finger in her ass.
I knew we could squeeze one more meme in, guys. I'm proud of you all.
Thank you everyone for
In
watching.
the shape
I hope you have a
of
wonderful
an
evening.
ass.
Good night.
Forehead.
Good night.